Good morning and welcome to Cambridge and Fulbourn Fen. Yeah, marsh orchids basically. Often get one or two surprises here, but it's marsh orchids primarily. Main target today is early marsh orchid. I know they're here, they're quite unique here as you'll see later on, but if I've got a hit list for today, it's the freshly opened, really pink coloured early marsh orchid, which are quite unique compared with other early marsh sites in this area and in Peterborough, and probably absolute top of the list if I'm lucky, the white Leucantha form of early marsh orchid. And there used to be 2 or 3 of them here, but I've not seen them now I think for 3 years, and I'd love to see them again this year. I'm hoping I'm early enough to catch them freshly opening, but timings could be out, and if they're out then I won't hit my goals. But let's give it a crack. Fulbourn Fen. Always a good site for common Twayblade here. There are hundreds, many hundreds. First of the early marsh orchids, they've got this. I mean, they open up. Fresh early marsh orchids here open up very pink, more pink than I see other early marsh orchids in other sites around here. But they fade rapidly. I mean, unlike any other early marsh orchids that I've come across. They don't hold the colour. They fade very fast. And there's only really a little bit of pink at the top of this one. And down near the bottom it's become cream coloured. I used to think there was something strange about them, some strange variation, but they're not. They just fade fast. I was just about to say common spotted orchid. I only saw one of these last year, and I only saw one common spotted orchid here at Fulbourn last year. They were all southern marsh. I thought, well, I've got a common spotted already, but looking down at the leaves, there's no spots on it, which would make this logically the first of the hybrids, common spotted cross southern marsh, and without the spots on the leaves. So I don't know whether it's back crossed to take it out. I don't really fully understand these. I've not seen hybrids before that don't have spots on leaves, but that's what this must be. A nice pure bog standard southern marsh orchid, just as a reference. Looks like this is going to be a bit of a rule breaker session today, I think. No way is that a bog standard southern marsh orchid with the amount of lines on there. It's more the markings of a common spotted with a bit of southern marsh in there, but again there's no spots on the leaves, which is mighty unusual, but I'll call it a hybrid still. Well, flower markings all over the place on this one, but reassuringly it has spots all over the leaves, which makes this a definite hybrid common spotted southern marsh. Another nice little early marsh, but again certainly non-typical. A sort of pale pink colour with very, very faint markings at the top. That's an interesting one. On the face of it, southern marsh orchid because of the patterns on the flowers, but very reflexed. Those flowers are very reflexed, particularly near the top. Very typical of early marsh, so I don't know, I'll need to look that one up when I get home. The Southern Marsh Early Marsh is quite an unusual and quite a rare hybrid. I think it's wintonii. I'll have to look that one up, but certainly some strange things going on in terms of flower shape. That's a little bit more of a standard early marsh, sort of early marsh you'd see around the Peterborough area, with that sort of flesh coloured incarnata form, pink at the top, fleshy pink, but you can see the patterning very clearly on these, and even down the bottom it's still holding its pattern and a bit of colour, but it seems not typical of the early marshes in this fen. Bold markings on that one, very spotty leaves on the face of it, the usual hybrid, but those sort of big bold loops with the two eyes, again very typical of early marsh orchid. I'll leave it as a standard common spotted Southern Marsh hybrid at the moment, but I'll also look that one up when I get home. Typical mixed bag of marsh orchids here at Fulbourn Fen. Southern Marsh, Early Marsh, hybrids, some common Twayblades thrown in. You always get a mixed bag. Nice little trio there of well, plain leaves, so you would have to say Southern Marsh orchid, even though those markings some would say look more like common spotted. But you know, Southern Marsh is a very variable, as is common spotted. They're both very variable dactylarizers, and you have to allow a little bit of scope for them being non-standard without necessarily being a hybrid. The fact there's no spots on the leaves, I'd have to say that's a slightly unusual set of Southern Marsh orchids. Well, that's pretty much a classic common spotted, and it has got spots on the leaves, so it is a common spotted. And as I said last time I came here, I only saw one that I could definitely say was a common spotted. I'm sure there used to be many more, but it seems like the Southern Marsh are completely bossing this reserve now, and the common spotted seem to be just vanishing. There aren't many. There's a pair here near identical, spotty leaves, common spotted, but again those very distinct two sacs in the middle of the flower with like a single spot inside each. Very typical markings of an early marsh orchid. If I saw this at Castor Hanglands, I'd be suggesting it might be a common spotted crossed with an early marsh. Kernerorum, I think the hybrid's called. I'm not saying it definitely is, but it may well be, and there's certainly a lot of early marsh here, so could well be. Two distinctly different early marsh orchids here. This is a Peterborough typical standard incarnata form of early marsh orchid, flesh coloured, which I think is what incarnata stands for. Might be wrong, but I think it does. And that's exactly what an early marsh orchid incarnata form should look like. But a Fulbourn Fen version sitting next to it, somewhat different, distinctly creamy coloured, and I'm assured it's nothing more than just a variation of incarnata. It's a nice pale form of Southern Marsh orchid. You usually get a few of these around. Well, there you go. We got one of the things I was looking for, one of the plants I was looking for, which is these very distinctly sort of pink. It's a bit salmony pink, but it's quite bright pink at the top that you get here at Fulbourn Fen. Hasn't really started to fade yet. That's quite a nice one. Well, it's the biggest orchid I've seen here so far. A very stout hybrid, common spotted southern marsh. I mean, a bit later in the year I might have said it could have just been a common spotted, but it's too big. They're not that far open yet. I think southern marsh is certainly in there, so I'm going to call it a hybrid. Certainly really good numbers of these early marsh orchids, probably more so than I've seen before here, so there's still some hope we'll find a white one. There it is. I don't see another one in the distance, so we got it right. That's the Leucantha form of the early marsh orchid. Pure white, hard to find. As I say, there were 2 or 3 here not so long ago, and I can certainly see another one in the distance. But that's a nice one. A much smaller one, but a second Leucantha, nice. Nice old school proper incarnata flesh coloured early marsh orchid. It's a nicely coloured southern marsh orchid. It's almost got red markings on a blue background or a purple background. A little bit different. Looking down on the top of this early marsh, you can see that very, very distinctly vibrant pink topping that some of the early marsh around here have. Wandered down to the patch where usually, he said optimistically, usually I see the odd bee orchid, and I've not seen any bee orchids yet this season, so it usually claims to be the first bee orchid site, if you like, of the season. Be interesting to see if we find one. That's a big one down there, bit of a brute. Good to see a nice broad stout, a reasonably tall southern marsh orchid, which it is, no spots on the leaves. I've seen plenty of bigger ones than this in past years, but for this season, so far, that's a big one. Another larger than average one for Fulbourn this season, and a paler form as well, it's quite nice. Pure southern marsh. Blimey, was not expecting that. Peeking out that tussock of grass there is most definitely, well, it's like 2 Leucantha form of early marsh orchids side by side. That is unusual. Let's have a ferret around. Well, there they are. I don't want to uncover them too much, keep them protected. But yeah, there's two Leucanthas in there, which makes 4 in total. Best I've ever seen here. Very nice. Good turnout Twayblades, as I mentioned earlier. No shortage of them. Blimey, is that another one? Is there another one? It is. Number 5. I've never seen 5 Leucantha forms here before. Very nice. That's a nice pale southern marsh orchid, almost pink. Probably the best of the pale ones I've seen today. That's quite a nice, vibrant southern marsh orchid. Just been down to the back end of the field. I don't usually go deep into the corners. There's a few down there, but more interesting was just peeping through the hedge. I could see what looked like, I might be wrong, but they look like distinctly purple coloured flowers in the next field. I've never been in the next field, never been in there to look for orchids. I just walked straight through it to come here, which is the main field here at Fulbourn Fen. So this could be interesting. Probably turn out that they weren't orchids, but I'm going to go and check. Might be a newly discovered patch, you never know what might be there. Right, let's go and see. Cannot find anything. I must be going nuts. Or maybe I'm seeing southern marsh orchids before my eyes when they're not even there. Oh, there are some. I'm not going mad. I think some of it was clover. There are a few down here. Nothing too exciting. At least I'm not seeing things. Not worth getting down and dirty for, really, but there are orchids in this field. Small ones, young ones, including early marsh, common spotted southern marsh, and nothing different, but might be worth keeping an eye on in years to come. I think that's it. I think that's it. I never let you down. Always a good showing of orchids here. Southern marsh, probably a bit smaller than I've seen them in the past, but they were even smaller last year, so they may be still recovering from last year's dry conditions. And we haven't had any rain here for 3 weeks plus now, so maybe that's impacted on them. They're going to get a bit bigger, but they're not going to be huge, but that's okay. Just get down and have a look at them. Some good variation in types there, not too many hybrids. Certainly more pure southern marsh than there are hybrids, which is good by me. Just the odd common spotted. Good numbers of early marsh, more early marsh than I've ever seen before. Unspectacular in the main, but a lot of early marsh orchids. Never seen that sort of numbers before. And I wanted to see the whites, the Leucantha form. We saw 5. I mean, that is crazy. It's quite a rare form. See 5 within about 10 yards of each other is brilliant. Saw a couple of the typical Fulbourn pink, juvenile, freshly opened early marsh. That was good as well. So I saw the things I came here to see. Didn't see a bee orchid, but didn't come here looking for bees. Common Twayblades. I think that was about it. Definitely, if you've never been here before, well worth coming out because you won't be disappointed. There's plenty to see. Plenty to see. Just get down and have a good look. Plenty to see. I've been here a lot of times now, so it's kind of, yeah, okay, still the same. Nothing outstanding apart from the white early marsh, which is outstanding. I'm happy with that. So yeah, that's it. Crack on. Where are we going next? I think on Wednesday we're going off somewhere. I think might be doing Castor Hanglands. It's about time we got down there. So yeah, fingers crossed for Castor Hanglands. I think that's on the agenda for Wednesday. So thanks for tuning in as always. And yeah, I'll see you later in the week.